Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri. We are continuing with our theme, The Old and the New World. Mother writes, "The really new thing is that a new world is born. It is not the old one transforming itself. It is a new world that is born. And we are right in the midst of this period of transition where the two are entangled, where the old still persists, all powerful, entirely dominating the ordinary consciousness, but where the new one is quietly slipping in, still very modest, unnoticed to the extent that outwardly it doesn't disturb anything very much for the time being. And in the consciousness of most people, it is even quite imperceptible. And yet, it is working. It is growing. Until the time comes when it will be strong enough to assert itself visibly. There are people who love adventure. It is these I call, and I tell them this: I invite you to the great adventure.
And later on, she also made a remark that when I mentioned it's an adventure, you thought it's just one of those ways of saying things. Actually, interesting today itself, read about transition um, and the challenges. So today itself, I was sharing these thoughts with my friend that if we go back maybe a million years back and see the transition which took place from ape to man, it was a massive upheaval. The settled order of things had gone. There was the animal law, the law of the jungle world. It's man doesn't embody it. He is mere nobody. Probably to start with, animals must have felt this is a strange, weird creature. And just two things in man which would eventually, or rather three things, which would eventually transform the whole relation with the world which the animal kind had. One, of course, was externally the discovery of fire, which animals were so scared of. The second was the light of intelligence in the eyes of man, which they know it's something superior, just as a possibility. And the third is the soul within. The thing is that man was not even aware what he's carrying. And I was just imagining that there were almost 8 or 9 subspecies which have vanished. They served only as bridges, subspecies. So, we get very disheartened sometimes. Oh, it's a long, well, of course it is long. And what else we expect?
Yeah.
50,000 years from ape to man.
And why else are we here?
And why else is creation? And if we look at it from that perspective, look at man was so much like an animal, and yet he knew something strange about him. He is different. But how is he different? He didn't know. And that which was inside as a seed has eventually outburst, and today we have rockets and jet age and nuclear bombs. So that upheaval.
And Mother says this one will be even more.
Even more, because from man to Superman, the upheaval is going to be far greater.
Far greater.
With far greater dangers.
Yes.
So, in that context, I thought, we think that there is a problem. How will the new world come? There are issues which are, we look at the external world mainly. We cannot go somehow beyond Trump and Kim Jong. That's our limits of our difficulties. But they are not the real difficulties. There are other difficulties far more serious which Mother and Sri Aurobindo have foreseen and worked upon. So,
And you mentioned these transitional stages.
Yes.
And Mother speaks about the Surom.
Yes, Sarom, that's right.
See, that will be a transitional stage before the Superman.
Yes.
And there'll be many more also.
There are many
Possibly.
children whom, just a term that has flashed to me and which I use in my writings, washout generation. There are children who don't belong to the old world, wherever they may be born. They There is something strange about them, and they don't yet belong to the new world. We are very fortunate to have at least been given the vision, and they don't know what they are really looking for. They feel very strange, uneasy,
Yes.
even weird. They have breakdowns. They enter into worlds which they don't understand. Some of them experience states of paranoia, and it's very interesting that how man would have felt when he was born amidst animals. He would have seen every animal with fear and suspicion. Today it's different, that we know this can be tamed, this is harmful, this is dangerous, this is friendly, this can become your pet. But at that point of time, the entire jungle, including the plants and trees and everything, they were either some sense of the divine which man always carried, or else everything else was ghost-like, strange, frightening.
Yeah.
So there are children who are really transiting through this phase, and we cannot understand. When mother was told about the number of people going mad, she said, I hear these reports that there are number of people going mad, particularly in America. And then she says, it is a good sign. For the moment, it is a good sign. It is a sign that there is a breakdown of the old measures,
Yeah.
and the new has not yet come. So just like we had the transition of 8 or 9 subspecies,
Yes.
so it's a painful thing, but you can't take otherwise the leap. And this is what, part of it we shall read. Very often when we read Savitri, one of the themes that comes is debate between death and Savitri.
Yes.
But after that debate is over, there is another small little, not exactly debate, but the challenge, which the Supreme Being,
From the Supreme.
yes,
Yes.
who tells Savitri. And that's why I often say that why I feel, at least this is my personal feeling, that the avatar is greater than the divine. Because the divine is divine, always the same. He is there in his supreme status. But the avatar is that, if we want to put it, aspect of the divine who plunges into this darkness. In a sense, divine himself has become all this. But he plunges, takes the burden of the flesh and our difficulties and dangers. So, I feel we can connect with him, and through him.
He's the light bringer.
He is the yes. So this is very interesting, and Sri Aurobindo starts with this 2 lines. This is on page 688, book 11, the book of everlasting day. So after the mask of death is torn, Savitri is taken up into the eternal manifestation. Mask of death and his reign is in the temporal manifestation which is subject to time and space and destruction. Then suddenly she sees the eternal manifestation where everything is beautiful, wonderful, luminous, powerful, blissful. And then the Godhead, the manifest divine, the Supreme as the manifest divine, and he says, you come here and you can live in one of these worlds. And she refuses.
He refuses.
And they are very powerful passages.
Yes.
But then comes these lines, page 688. Then with a smile august as noonday heavens, the Godhead of the vision wonderful. And it's a marvelous description. I think we have
Yes.
read it sometime. How shall earth nature and man's nature rise to the celestial levels, yet earth abide? So, it's one thing in our inner consciousness to realize and experience the divine. But earth is still lagging far behind. And Sri Aurobindo speaks of this difficulty in the supramental manifestation, which is one of the last writings.
Yes.
And he says the difficulty is dual, psychological and corporeal. So he speaks of the challenge for matter and embodied consciousness. Inner consciousness you can experience. But the moment you enter into matter, matter is not yet mentalized. If it was fully mentalized, our mind could control the heartbeats, control the breath, control every movement within the body, but we cannot. We are unconscious. So large part of our body is submerged in unconsciousness, and that is why we don't know We know only the surface parts, that too only if we pay attention. And that explains why the mother gave so much importance to physical education. And she even mentioned about this, and Sri Aurobindo says that one of the first things that we have to do is to bring those functions which are right now autonomous under the control of a conscious will. This small thing is very difficult. Let's say your gastric secretions. How to bring it under conscious will? Unconscious. Leave aside respiration and heartbeat, which rare yogis and of course Sri Aurobindo has experienced. When he says he stepped into a magic place where the heart stops.
Yes.
So he has experienced it. These very rare instances. So where all this can be brought under conscious control, and the mother goes much further. Consciousness in the cells. So the problem is not about inner being experiencing the divine. That has been done umpteen number of times. Problem is this earth abide. Rishabh Chandji, when he left his body,
Yes.
and many people had all kinds of stories as usual.
Yeah, I just read about it.
Yeah, he walked into the
He
ocean.
walked into the sea.
And it's one of the means of departure which is called a Jal Samadhi. So people started making all kinds of rumors. So mother gave her version, her vision. She said people don't know. They are so foolish. She says he was so much agonized by the idea of meeting the Supreme in this body. And the mother whole night felt that anguish. And she would want to do it, but it's not possible. Matter is not ready. And she could experience that entire anguish. I want to see the Supreme, but in this house of flesh. How do you do it? In traditional yoga, if at all you have that vision and you stay for some time here, because you have to stay with that sense, your body will melt away. So she says, I could understand this anguish and this intense aspiration. He was walking up and up and up and up and mountain. And after a certain point, it all snapped. She gives that image of climbing towards the sun literally. And we have this story of Trishanku in Indian scripture where Trishanku wants to go to heaven with a body. But heaven shuts him and pushes him down that you can't go with this human body. It is not pure enough. And ultimately he cannot. He hangs. And Sri Aurobindo has written a whole poem on that, the triumph song of Trishanku. So this is the first challenge. And then, the Godhead speaks of that difficulty, that how is it possible that earth nature will abide? Of course, she will give a solution, but that we'll not talk of today, maybe next time. Then there is another challenge, another difficulty. Of course, because of this, he says why, on page 689, a few can climb to an unperishing sun. The heroes and the demigods are few, to whom the close immortal voices speak, and to their acts the heavenly clan are near. But if these people hurl into action in the world, they have a short life. And if they withdraw, like that Swami Brahmanand, staying in isolation, you can prolong your life by imposition of another plane, but that's not transformation. Otherwise, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna Param, many of them, they cannot. Even Swami Ramalingam, whose body vanished, used the word grace light, and mothers heard the whole passage.
But they say that the Vedic rishis
They tried. One of them story is again Dadichi, whose body melted away.
Yes.
So it's difficult. He says they are very few. Why we cannot really climb to that level? Because we are tied to earth nature. And to their acts the heavenly clan are near. Few are the silences in which truth is heard. Days and weeks and months of meditation. Okay, peace, silence, light, all that is fine. But the voice of the divine, few are the moments. Few are the splendid moments of the seers. And then come these marvelous lines. Heaven's call is rare. Rarer the heart that heeds. Because why heaven doesn't call? Because we are not ready. And probably that's what Christ meant, or what is there in the Bible.
Yeah.
Many are called,
And
few are chosen.
Yeah.
So there people are called, but human nature, it's not so simple. Millions of years. And look further, the doors of light are sealed to common mind. And earth's needs nail to earth the human mass. So the mother opened the doors to light. Then earth's needs, she said, okay, I'll provide you a space. Your food, clothing, shelter will be taken care of. And because he said that there were people who used to tell me that we have no time left to seek the divine. So she says, when I arrived at what is normally called as the midlife, I had a possibility. So look at the humility of Divine
I
Mother.
remember this.
So I created a space. I said, okay, now everything is provided. Now you seek the divine. And then she says, but so far my experience has been that this is not the reason. And she says that I am throwing a challenge. I would be, willing to be proved otherwise. I would be happy to be proved otherwise. The moment everything is provided, man becomes lazy. He mixes freedom for licentiousness. So it's so difficult. So heaven's call is rare, rarer the heart that heeds. Only in an uplifting hour of stress men answer to the touch of greater things. Then also we cry, why there is problem, why there is stress, why there is challenge. When nothing works, when Mahalakshmi tries to wake us up, or Maheshwari is far too distant, so you want to sleep, very nice. Then Mahalakshmi comes and sweetly with her sweet voice says, my child, wake up, see I have got something nice prepared for you. No, Mama, let me sleep. Then Mahakali comes. Then we say, you are bad. So I use this word, wake up call. Then comes the shake up call. So only in an there is sometimes
Uplifting hour of stress.
also a breakup call. Sometimes those who are really chosen, she pulls and says, I love you too much to leave you for the world. Gone.
Very true.
You may cry, everything is being taken away from me, doesn't matter. You come to me. It gives me the image of a child being taken by her mother out of love from playing in the mud. And the child is crying to go there, but she is dragging the child and then giving a nice wash scrub. So it is like that. Only in an hour of uplifting stress. Look at the... so when people say that, what is happening in the world, we should know it is an uplifting stress. And she has said that if it is left to men to collaborate, or the change will be imposed upon them by the stress of circumstances, crashing circumstances. So any which way, the victory will be the divine victory.
But when she said that one message, men, countries, continents,
yes.
the choice is imperative, truth or the abyss. Oh,
And she was asked, what is the abyss?
They came to
Yes. The
very disturbed.
mother was asked, what is the abyss? She said, lust for power, money. Lust, ambition for power and money. These three are the abysses.
Yes.
Greed for money. She said, but for a sadhak, there is nothing to fear. She also said.
Yeah.
And then she added, fear is the worst of all.
Yes.
So this is the abyss. It opens the door to abyss. So, and then she said, but for a sadhak, he has nothing to worry. With trust in the grace, he moves. This is the second challenge. Or raised by some strong hand to breathe heaven air, they slide back to the mud from which they climbed. In the mud of which they are made, whose law they know, the joy in safe return to a friendly base. That's what I keep telling people. It's not easy to live in a place like the ashram, or there are centers outside Auroville where mother's work is being done actively. Because the pressure is so much. One wants to get into that life where, because there is a pressure to change. You feel it right in the bones. You feel it in the mind.
And if you have everything given to you,
that makes it doubly. But there is such an intense pressure. So
yes,
uh, one wants to go back. One feels suffocated like the mud fish. That example we gave the other day. They joy in safe return to a friendly base, and though something in them weeps for glory lost and greatness murdered, they accept their fall. I have met some such people in the course of my travels, and it's so distressing to see. Even somebody like Dilip Kumar Roy, how he would weep later on. And then he would say, I know I have made a blunder, but she is the Divine Mother. She'll forgive me. Yet he could not, still did not keep Mother's picture in his Hare Krishna Mandir.
yeah,
Then another was Barinda. Same thing.
yeah,
She is the Divine. I know she will forgive me. But he couldn't take it.
yeah,
Same thing with Mother's physical husband.
yes,
So all this, and there are many, quite a few. Suresh Chakravarti went away. Anil Baran,
yes, Suresh
of
Chakravarti.
that greatness. Many others. They couldn't bear it. So,
Even in modern days,
yes.
there are some who have said to Mother, I can't do this, but you cannot refuse me your grace.
Yes, then she's happy. Actually, all these cases, they were not
Yes.
open to the grace. It's very,
Yes.
this Anil Baran, Sri Aurobindo had told him not to go away. This was the main thing he
Yeah,
told.
yeah.
He went away driven by this idealism that I want India and Pakistan to be one. People don't realize yoga is very different from these mental idealisms. And then what happened? I mean, he died like incognito. Same with Prashant.
Yes,
The fellow was Aurangzeb in his previous life. What a chance given to come here.
yeah,
Maybe because even though he was rigid, staunch, but he believed in God in some way. And the man came here, eventually went away. And what a miserable death. So, something that's why many temptations, many difficulties, issues are there. Life is full of these challenges. They are the spice of life, Why should we, wherever we go, life has challenges. But this grace to, turn the back on that. To be the common man, they think the best. Somebody asked the other day, few days back in Coimbatore, Sir, tell me, what about the common man? I said, first define common man. Common man is not somebody who doesn't have money and doesn't have enough to eat. Common man is somebody who is happy with the commonness. So I said, common man will live like a common man because he wants to remain the common man. What can you do about that? But a man may be poor and yet have an uncommon aspiration. He is marked out for something tremendous. A man may be rich and remain a common man. So,
But it's interesting, Alok, that Sri Aurobindo in this canto speaks of the higher man uplifting
yes,
the common man.
that comes later.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Mother says it's not yet resolved whether the common
Yes.
man is going to survive.
Yes. He said that.
Yeah.
Because, of course, we are using the word common in the sense of,
Yes.
somebody who is very satisfied within that frame, small little frame of
Yeah.
everyday life. The routine of morning to night, you have food, you go for your job and earn some money, have a family, and that's it. Few minutes dedicated to God. So that, yes. To live as others live is their delight. In fact, very often people look upon many of the devotees and disciples askance that these fellows are nut loose, Please. So, because it's an unusual, uncommon way of life.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Imagine, you have a wonderful place in Georgia, such a lovely estate. I'm sure some of us may have seen, his garden, Narad's garden. What a lovely place. Why should he leave all that and come here in ashram and everybody, people from Russia, from here, especially those who leave behind their countries all over the world and come in Auroville and other places, I really salute. It's not easy. See, for us, it's still easy. I mean, I can't imagine going to Alaska if Sri Aurobindo lived there. Of course, one has to go, but to live in Alaska, that was the proposal, no? Land in Alaska to Sri Aurobindo. French government was giving. So, if for this I keep on thanking, Lord, you refused it, how difficult it would have been for us. But just imagine that, people leave behind. People must be wondering, it's madness.
Yeah.
It's much better to lead a so-called normal life.
And Temi used to tell me that Sri Aurobindo answered her prayer. No Himalayas, but the heat of South India. That's what she loved.
Yes. Yes. If you see that side, the mother, then all is wonderful. For most are built, now the secret is, for most are built on nature's early plan and owe small debt to a superior plane. The human average is the level pitch, a thinking animal's material range. So there is a lot of evolutionary ground still to be covered. Even the mental evolution is not complete. And to aid it, there has come a flurry of inventions and technological life which is accelerating mental evolution. It's necessary for the average person. You see, it's important. Because suddenly you see an acceleration in the mental evolution. But for those who are ready to go past, they should go past. But now because of this, human beings are exposed to a wide range of, there is a window to the world.
Yeah.
So this is one problem, or rather the second problem. Then comes a third challenge, and which is a much bigger challenge. In this stark economy of cosmic life, each creature to its appointed task and place is bound by his nature's form, his spirit's force. First of all, the form that is given to us does not allow brain. There is no center in the brain to receive the supramental influx. So, there is no holding point. So, form limits us. Form has been built to largely perpetuate certain animal functions. So, how does this form? Second is the spirit's force. Man can move from tamas to rajas to sattva and possibly have a mystic opening. Beyond that is not allowed. Spirit's force. So these are the limits. And why? Because man is the mediating stair. We shall come to that. If this were easily disturbed, it would break the settled balance of created things. So that is the other problem, and Mother speaks of this, what we were referring, that the confusion which is going to come will be far greater.
Yes.
And she says, imagine Superman with much more power at their disposal. What would happen if simultaneously the ego sense is not lost? Because now it will start pouring on earth. Supermind is there. Wherever there is an opening, receptivity, these things will start pouring. Imagine the power comes without commensurate working on the ego sense.
Yes.
It could be so dangerous. Already we see there are people who are developing, getting into, occult, this, that, and all kinds of new faculties which will come. The perpetual order of the universe would tremble and a gap yawn in woven fate. And then comes this interesting line. If men were not and all were brilliant gods, the mediating stair would then be lost, by which the spirit awake in matter winds, accepting the circuits of the middle way. By heavy toil and slow aeonic steps, reaching the bright, miraculous fringe of God into the glory of the oversouls. Up till this point, path has been made, but through a slow evolving process. Now suddenly if men become equal to gods, leave aside what will happen to gods. That's a different story altogether. Probably initially they will have an issue because we won't worship them. We'll simply say hi and bye. Because they become brothers and sisters, friends. You see, gods also don't want us to go beyond.
True.
Because, who will worship them? So if man unites with the Supreme in the human body, So, but they are nice beings. So they eventually, they say, oh, it's okay. They will at the most test you. So, but this link, which is because of karmic sequences. Imagine the supramental being will have no karma. Mother speaks of that in volume 3.
How it will be formed, yes.
Supramental, she speaks of resurrection. And she says in us, this is what resurrection means. Now, when you are born at each moment, that means you live at that moment as the law of truth reveals itself to you. There are no mental conceptions, formations, frameworks, measures, good, bad, right, wrong. Those have gone. First of all, it's dangerous. But at the same time, you are acting under the will of the divine, not any impulsion. Of course, the risk is that you may mistake the animal impulsion for the divine will, but that's a different story. The thing is that you'll have no karma because it's the divine who is acting in you. And that is the hint given in the Gita toward the close. That you don't worry about, you are thinking about this I should do or that I should do. Act according to the will of the divine, surrendering yourself to me. I'll take care of the rest. So the karmic law is cut. Now here the karmic law is not formed, there is no chain. So it's like somebody doing something and vanishing without a trace. So it's amazing.
What was Mother's last prayer? Thy will, O Lord.
Constantly, let thy will be done. Yes. So, and then there is the fourth challenge. So she has taken care of all this. So she keeps the mediating stair, she speaks to the gods, she speaks to the titans. She also, that's why Mother says there will be many abortive species, intermediate species. Because she has taken care of that. Okay, it won't be one leap. There will be a few subspecies, degrees, and then eventually that ascent. And she has even some of the major steps she has already named.
Yes.
Superman is one. Somebody has translated as overman. It doesn't matter, but there will be intermediate stages.
Can you just talk a little bit about the supramental ship?
Yes,
Because I think
that's
this would be
very
beautiful.
interesting.
Yeah.
Good, you reminded me of that. So she sees a vision, Mother's 3rd February. I think it is, let me see, I think it is 1958, soon after the supramental descent, or maybe a little later, but it's 3rd February that I remember. So she sees that there is a ship in which a lot of beings, earthly beings are going. And as they are going, they reach a port which is where they have to disembark. And there are two tall beings who are actually supramental beings who will decide who is ready to pass on to the next level and who is not ready.
Right.
And then she says that I could see, because she is the captain of the ship. So she says, I could see that as soon as they came in that zone, there were places in their being, body, which was casting a shadow, and others where there was no shadows.
Yeah.
So some were ready, some were not, some were partially ready, they were being sent back to be worked upon and come back. And then she says, I realize the criteria is very different. That is the interesting part.
Yes.
She says, normally many things that we give a great value spiritually,
Yes.
they had no value at all from the supramental standpoint. And then when I saw, I laughed and laughed and laughed. I woke up laughing. So she says that if somebody would have seen me, they would have thought I have gone mad. This was her statement. So then later on the disciple asked that, you said that the human criteria doesn't apply. Can you specify what did you see? She says particularly certain moral notions in India about ascetic life. And then she particularly spoke of marriage. She says, for example, the sacredness and sanctity of marriage has no importance at all from the supramental standpoint. Now imagine, she made it so clear. She described another experience after this. We'll not go into that. That's more personal. But those who wish, they can read it. She says, for example, ascetic purity. This is the word she used. That means outwardly, you should be, you should look good, pure, holy. The second thing she says, sanctity of marriage. They have no value from the supramental standpoint. So she was asked, what has value? She said, wideness and plasticity. And of course, perfect immobility, which is difficult.
Yeah.
But at least a stillness, equanimity. Another is wideness. Narrow minded, you can't enter into those gates. Strange. Narrow means small, you should be able to enter. The gates don't allow, they catch you. And the other is plasticity. You should not be rigid, dogmatic. Only this way, only this. Those who tie themselves into many rules and formulas, strangely and paradoxically, it becomes a bar.
Yeah.
So, so
Wasn't there a color that she saw, the orange color?
orange color, which comes
very
with the
interesting.
earth
Yes.
and mates with it. And then she also gives lot of disciples, like Purani, part of it was ready, rolling in the supramental clay. All these experiences follow that.
Yeah.
Sri Aurobindo's supramentalized body, which has those capacities, this amazing range of experiences he describes. But the interesting part is that people come, they go. And I know a story of somebody who, when he died, somebody asked mother that what happened to him after his death. Mother said, he had a part which was very open towards me. But there was an insuperable difficulty in one aspect of his nature. Now I don't remember, I have read so many things now. The problem is that some people ask for references. Of course, many of them I remember, but probably I read it in Govind Bhai Patel's book, but I'm not very sure. But it's authentic. The words may be a little bit this way, that way. So she said, what I did, there was a part of his nature which was very difficult. That difficulty just could not. So I just did a small surgery on that part when he left the body. And I have taken it away, removed it away from his nature. So what would have taken him 5 or 10 lives, now he can finish it in 2 or 3 lives. So there are things he does we have no clue about.
Basu told me once that people entering the ashram, he could see beings on top of them.
Yes.
And he could see Mother just take them away.
Yes.
Just take
This actually, even initially we know earlier, before the ashram was formed, with Pavitra Da, with
Yes.
quite a few people, this has happened. And she would say, no, nothing to worry, there was this being. And they try to, and these are not just hostile beings or dark beings.
No.
There are even beings who want to use human beings for expansion of they are beings of the vital worlds, even higher vital. Daityas, very strong. Also gods of the vital planes. The moment your sadhana proceeds, they want to use you and capture you because they can really act on earth. But if ever such a being ties down with anyone, the best is to compel that being to surrender. That whatever it is, now you are my baby and I belong to Divine Mother, so you also surrender rather than trying to pull me in that direction. But yes, so many things. But finally he says, my will, my call is there in men and things, but the inconscient lies at the world's grey back and draws to its breast of night and death and sleep. This is another thing which sometimes one sees, and it's a word of caution. I remind myself, and of course grace is there, it won't happen, it shouldn't happen. But sometimes when I see people who come into the past 75, 80 zone, and I salute them when they remain young and full of trust. Narad, you are an example. Honestly, because I have seen people become cynics. I have seen people who become doubters, who start saying that, oh, all my life I live, what is it? I was living to see this. It's so beautiful to be full of trust and faith. Doesn't matter, 100 difficulties are not important, but to remain still full of faith. It's a blessing that till your last moment you are full of faith. That doesn't matter, 100 lives. Still, one day the divine victory will be there. It's not easy. So inconscient pulls back towards death and sleep. So people, when they start becoming cynics, recently I heard one talk by, I won't name, obviously, I'm a very elderly person. And he was, supposed to speak on science of new creation, but was mentioning all the issues, problems from Trump. I said obsession. Trump and Kim Jong to this and that. He said, I don't know what's happening. Murders are taking place. This, that. Whole Delhi statistics. And it was such a depressing thing. At the end, he says, ultimately, only if man consciousness changes, there can be a change, not otherwise. Of course, that is a well-known thing. But, if you look at the surfaces and paint a gloomy picture, that means the fundamental thing in science and yoga, common thing is look behind appearances.
Yes.
And live with the state of oneness that everything is leading toward the divine. So, inconscient. Imprisoned in its dark and dumb abyss, a little consciousness it lets escape, but jealous of the growing light holds back, close to the obscure edges of its cave, as if a fond, ignorant mother kept her child tied to her apron strings of nescience.
What a line.
What a line. At once practical, profoundly psychological,
Yes.
and deeply spiritual and mystic.
Yes.
And this also reminds me one of the difficulties in India. See, in many ways, there are actually, India psychically open, surrender, all that is there. But the big challenge of India, tradition. Mother holding back to apron strings. They can't go beyond a Hanuman temple and, some Chalisa. I'm very surprised. Honestly, sometimes I see, who was it? Anyways, someone presented to me, even all this comes, Hanuman Chalisa and, okay, I have done all this, I remember it. But you're going into something far, far greater and different. Or we will reduce sometimes Mother and Sri Aurobindo to that again, that religiosity. It doesn't allow, jealous of the growing light. I look at it like that inconscient says, look, already I have allowed so much. All the great gods, avatars have come in India. Now don't ask for supramental creation. Be satisfied with your lot of 133 crore devtas. So you have to still say, no, this does not satisfy the quest of my soul. It's not easy to go past these forms. Even for an Indian to look beyond Om into Ma is, I'm telling you, it's so strange. Om is wonderful. Mother has said it's the signature of the Lord. And it's so wonderful. But sometimes I feel as a mantra, just simply the word Ma. Yes, even a cow can chant it. The first thing it says,
And I believe they do.
Ma. That's why cow is sacred. Now you understand why in India cow is sacred. It has nothing to do with holiness and other things. Nothing to do with the Vedas. I am not sloganeering for a political party. But look at the cow. Forget about all her gifts and wonderful things. Forget about the innocence in her eyes. But just think of it. When a cow is born and a cow grows up, what does she say? Ma. So I love the cow for this. Universal mantra first uttered by cow. Even cat says, but it slightly distorts it. Meow. So, close to ma. Look at it. It's such a wonderful thing. So, but the inconscient won't allow beyond a point. So, and everywhere, this challenge.
Yes.
In the West, the challenge is the mind. It says, I have given you so much light in the mind and mental light. Why do you want to leap to intuition? There is another kind of challenge in the West. You have to understand everything from purely mental, intellectual terms. And unless you reduce it to that, it doesn't exist. So you see, it's the inconscient which holds and ties. So we can probably stop with these lines. It's a lovely line. Yes. Imprisoned in its dark and dumb abyss, a little consciousness it lets escape. But jealous of the growing light holds back, close to the obscure edges of its cave, as if a fond, ignorant mother kept her child tied to her apron strings of nescience. She would allow thus far and no further. It's a typical Indian image. Typical Indian image. Old time mothers, don't go beyond your mohalla. Never go beyond your village. Town life was considered as almost a taboo. And going abroad means your dharma is gone. If you come back, you must pour Ganga Jal. Telling you the reality.
Yeah.
That's why many people from villages who came to India, to the ashram, those days, even recently, Odisha and southern parts, many persons came. They all ran away from their homes. No choice. If they stayed in their homes, they would not be allowed. You stay here and worship. But the plan has been changed. Who gave the courage? I can't imagine. Who gave the courage? Who provided the power and the means? And I was hearing life of one of the persons who ran away with 12 rupees and was hanging in general compartment with no ticket, nothing. Today he is a millionaire. I came to ashram. Even another person, 17-year-old boy running all the way from Assam, because this was unacceptable. And what to do? Lord has opened his ashram in Pondicherry. So all the way people, even from north going south, was regarded as you are crossing the Vindhyas means you are in almost another country. So the divine has now made it so simple that even if the child, you are in a village in, India and the child is in New York, now he has made it easy for these mothers that look, you can still feel he is near. So now inconscient is also little satisfied that this light which is coming down, I will also benefit. So this is how the plan is changing. So we'll stop here and continue.